Still awake, little one? Would you like to hear a story before the lights return to the sky? It's an old story, but a good one. It's about a little bird who had a song that changed everything, and a lonely king who almost missed it. Let me tell you what happened when the nightingale sang.
There once was a king who had everything except the one thing he didn't know he needed. He lived in a palace carved from polished stone, decorated with silver mirrors and crystal lights. Every vase sparkled, every curtain shimmered. Even the flowers had little bells tied to them, so no one could pass without noticing. The royal court who lived in the palace loved shiny things, and the king, he loved them most of all. He had cabinets filled with treasures, statues of glass birds and golden deer, and a throne that glowed like firelight. But he had no time for gardens. He never noticed the forest just beyond the gate. He didn't know the sound of the sea or the wind through pine trees. He had been so busy collecting things. He had never collected a single moment of wonder. The rest of the kingdom, though, was different. The people lived in tune with the seasons. They planted and gathered, shared and sang. Even the children knew where to find the most fragrant moss or which trees bloomed last. And when night came, many of them listened for something special, a song that came from the forest at the edge of the sea, a song from a little grey bird that sang only when the world was quiet enough to hear. They called her the Nightingale. In the palace kitchen was a girl named Rin. Her mother worked the morning ovens, and her father was a fisherman who worked near the shore. Some days, when the palace was too noisy, Rin would slip away to a tall tree that grew near the coast. There, wrapped in her cloak, she would rest beneath its branches. And above her, the nightingale would sing. It was never the same song. Sometimes it reminded her of water over pebbles, other times like laughter echoing through the forest, but always it made Rin feel close to her parents and close to home. One day, the king received a beautifully bound book from a foreign court. It praised his palace and his gardens, his jewels and his mirrors. But at the very end, it said, "And yet, the most precious treasure of all is the song of the nightingale." The king blinked.
The what?
He asked.
The nightingale,
Said his advisor, who'd never heard of it either. The king frowned.
How could there be something so wonderful in my kingdom, and I don't even own it?
He demanded the bird be brought to him at once. Servants searched high and low. They searched the gardens and questioned staff, but no one in the palace had seen such a bird. Finally, a quiet voice spoke up. It was Rin, holding a basket of herbs.
I know the nightingale,
She said gently.
She sings by the tree near the sea.
They didn't believe her at first until she led them there. The sun was setting. The sea was calm. And from high in the branches, a small grey bird opened its beak and sang. The song drifted like mist. It rippled like light on water. The court gasped. Even the king stood very still. He had never heard anything so simple and so moving. A tear rolled down his cheek, but he did not understand why. The king invited the nightingale to stay in the palace. He built her a golden cage and gave her silken ribbons. At first, the bird sang sweetly, even among the bells and mirrors. But the king wanted more. He wanted her to sing when he ordered. He wanted her to sparkle like the jewels on his crown. He did not understand that the truest things cannot be owned. Then, one day, a gift arrived, a gleaming artificial bird made of silver gears and tiny gems. It sparkled more than the real bird. It played the same song over and over again, and everyone could hum along. The king was thrilled.
This one
He said.
is much easier.
But when they turned to look for the real nightingale, she had flown out the open window, back to the tree by the sea, back to nature, where her song belonged. Years went by, the palace filled with more treasures, more mirrors, more gold. But none of it sang. The artificial bird sat on its pedestal, winding down little by little until it barely played at all. The king grew older. He no longer smiled when the gems sparkled. The laughter in the palace faded, and the king felt hollow. He lay in bed, day after day, surrounded by everything he owned, but with no one to share it. His heart ached for something he couldn't name. He couldn't remember the last time he saw something, not for how it looked, but for how it made him feel. One evening, as the king lay alone in the quietest room of his palace, the moonlight spilled in through the window, and so did a sound. Not flashy, not rehearsed, just honest and full of feeling. The nightingale had returned. She landed on the windowsill, looked at him once, and began to sing. The sound filled the room like warmth. The king felt his shoulders soften, his eyes watered.
I never understood before.
He whispered. The nightingale tilted her head.
I saw tears in your eyes the first time I sang. That was my treasure, not jewels, not gold, just knowing I moved your heart.
The king blinked, breath catching in his chest.
That was enough for you?
The bird's voice was as gentle as her song.
Yes, it always was. You can't hold a song in your hand, but you can carry it in your heart forever.
And she sang again, not for applause, not for reward, but because she cared. The king closed his eyes, and for the first time in many years, he felt full. From that night on, the king changed, not quickly, not loudly, just gently. He walked the gardens, he listened to the waves, he asked questions, he listened to answers. He shared more meals, more time, more laughter. He kept fewer things and found more joy. And the nightingale? She never stayed in a cage, but she returned when she wished to perch by the window and sing. Sometimes the song was about happiness, sometimes sorrow, but always it was real, and that made it the greatest treasure of all.
And that, little one, is why some of the most important things can't be kept behind glass or in a cage. You don't need to shine to be beautiful. You don't need to shout to be heard. Sometimes, you just have to sing what's in your heart. Good night.